3 years ago, I fainted dead away in my living room and had a massive pulmonary embolism that I am so lucky I came out alive from. Not a lot of people live from what I had. And I was in the ICU, I was out of work for 6 weeks and all that. And it truly did change my life in a way because I was so surrounded by love and support from my vast network and tribe of people that it became that gratitude became a part of who I am and not a mechanism, right? So, uh, because I had a realization when you have something like that happen, running this company is really important to me. All of my community work's really important, but boy, that flipped the lens to say what really matters is your relationships, how you do good in the world, how you connect with people. And I learned deep at my cellular level that if you bring that into your work and everything that you do, then there's no place for fear or imposter syndrome.
Welcome to the Impodsters. I'm Johnny, and I have our definition of the day. For legacy leaders, imposter syndrome is not just about doubting one's current abilities. It's a struggle with the fear that their past accomplishments were due to luck or circumstance, and that they may not be able to sustain the excellence expected of them. This can lead to risk aversion, overworking to compensate for perceived shortcomings, reluctance to delegate, and a tendency to hide vulnerabilities, all of which can impact both personal well-being and organizational performance. If you love what we're doing here on the Impodsters, follow us on social and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts. So today's definition is centered around legacies. And today we have one, and the one and only Janet Miller. So let's jump in. Janet has been a key player in Nashville's real estate and development community for over 30 years. She joined the Nashville office of Colliers as, I believe, at the time, the first and only female CEO, and we'll check to see if that's still the case, and the market leader. In September of 2014, following 21 years of service as the Chief Economic Development Officer for the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, where I met Janet. In addition to her leadership of Colliers, Janet is also deeply involved in a wide range of community initiatives. And when I say wide, I mean wide, including key leadership roles with the Metropolitan Transit Authority, the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, Leadership Nashville, and the Rotary Club of Nashville. In her role at the Nashville Chamber of Commerce, Miller led the 10-county region's top agency for economic development, working with over 400 corporations on major job creation projects during that time, including Asurion, HCA Beretta, Mars Pet Care, Nissan Bridgestone, Dell, Bank of New York Mellon, UBS, and numerous others. Whenever I have a problem in traffic, I often call Janet Miller to complain to her personally about it because of the growth that this person impacted so well in the growth of our town. She currently also serves on the boards of Studio Bank and Delta Dental of Tennessee. Holy cow. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you, my friend. It's so fun to be here.
I have a tendency to say I'm excited for just about every guest, and it is true, but it is extra true today. Janet, I met you in the early aughts. We probably need to go back and study it a little bit, but I want to say probably somewhere around 2003, 2004.
Long time ago. Yes,
yeah,
it was.
over 20 years, and I have watched Janet personally, listeners, as one of the most powerful women in the greater Nashville area. I've seen Janet, and when I say her thumbprint is on the greater Nashville area, everywhere you look, the growth that you see. There was a point in time in Nashville's history where it was, I'll say it, in an inflection point. And that inflection point was right there with the reins in hand was Janet and a team of people, and they really made an impact on making Nashville just an incredible town. And so I guess, hey, thanks. Sucks the traffic, Janet, but everything else is pretty
Sorry
cool. So
about that,
thank you.
man.
So where do we find you today?
Where do you find me today? You find me in my home office the day before Memorial Day weekend. I'm happy to be here.
So you're got any big plans for the weekend, do you?
Oh, just gardening, goofing off, hiking, relaxing, floating on a
Oh,
raft in Wanda Lyle's pool, things like that.
that sounds lovely. Well, I am excited to have you on, and I think you're going to be one of our first guests that, as I mentioned, Janet's accomplishments. I think a lot of today listeners, we're going to be focused on someone who is accomplished in a way that I don't think we have had guests on that are at this level. I'll, for those of you listening, you won't be able to see this, but for those of
Oh,
you who are
good
watching
Lord.
on YouTube, you're seeing this is the front page of the Nashville Business Journal.
Goodness
Um,
gracious.
I could, if there were any business journal, Nashville Business Journal, laying over to the side, there's about a 50-50 chance I could just open it up and she's going to be in there somewhere. That that is the type of person that we're dealing with. But there was one lunch date that you and I had, and I was kind of telling you what I was up to, and you shared with me that you had some feelings of imposter syndrome that were pretty severe over time, which I found fascinating. But you're the target audience in the 1978 article from Dr. Pauline Clance and Dr. Suzanne Imes. It was about high performing women. So
Mm-hmm.
you are the target audience, and you are definitely high performing. So without any further ado, and me gushing about what an incredible person
You're
Janet
so
Miller
sweet.
is, I want to ask you some questions.
Great.
So, the first question that I would ask is really around your personal experience and perspective. And my question is, have you ever experienced feelings of imposter syndrome in your career, especially as you took on those leadership roles in traditionally
Mm-hmm.
male dominated industries like real estate and economic development?
Oh, good Lord, yes. Are you kidding me? I mean, I have had imposter syndrome my whole life, and it still rears up every now and then at the age of 62 after a, 40-year career. I will say at the chamber, when I first started, I was an entry level business recruitment manager. So I was in charge of working with companies to try to convince them to move to Nashville or to try to keep them there. And I was 25, 26 years old, truly didn't know what I was doing, didn't know how I'd gotten the job. And you will laugh at this story, but I had a boss and a mentor who was a very wise older man named Fred Harris. And he called me in his office one day and he said, "Hey, I've got a project I want you to lead." And I said, "Okay, tell me what it is." And it was back when Rick Scott was running HCA. And he decided he wanted to move that headquarters, look at moving that headquarters out of Nashville, Tennessee to someplace in Kentucky or Texas. So here I am. I'm a 25, 26-year old, maybe had been there a year. And Fred said, "I want you to run lead on this project." They had engaged Anderson Consulting to represent them to figure it out. And I looked at Fred and I was like, "Fred, that's the most important corporation in this town." I was like, "I can't lead that." I'm like, "What are you doing?" And I only wish that every woman could have mentors and people who have their back like I did at the age of 25. But Fred said, "You've got this. You've got this. And I'm here standing behind you." And so I have never worked on anything so hard in my life because these Anderson Consulting consultants would swarm into town, and I was populating all these Excel spreadsheets and driving around in a van looking at real estate. And what I learned is they didn't know I had imposter syndrome. It would be terrible if they knew that. They needed to see a calm, confident, enthusiastic 26-year-old. And what I found is I was capable of it. Fortunately, the HCA is still in Nashville, right? So that's something I'm super proud of. And that was Governor Bredesen and Clayton McWhorter and all the people who came around it. But you talk about getting thrown in the deep end of a pool and getting imposter syndrome. That was just a classic case, and I had to say to myself, "You've got this," because the person I had to bring to it every day, there was no space for being nervous or not self assured, because I had to persuade uh, the people I encountered that Nashville was the town. Fortunately, like you said, Nashville's an amazing place, so it spoke for itself. But
Having a
great
good product,
example.
yeah, having a good
Having a good
product is not
product
a bad
helps.
thing.
It does. It
Um,
does.
there's so much that I would like to unpack in
Uh-huh.
that first answer. Um, there was some we talk a lot about what is imposter syndrome, and
Mm-hmm.
there's fundamental, which is, it's built into us, it's a part of who we are, and no matter what the situation is, we have those
Mm-hmm.
moments of doubt. And then there's situational, where regardless of the fundamental component, you're thrust into this thing where you actually kind of are out over your skis.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of the past episodes, Chris Kelso, he was the guy that
Yeah.
introduced me to imposter syndrome. Chris
Uh-huh.
wrote the book Overcoming the Imposter. And when he was on the show, he talked a little bit about a concept that I found very useful, and I hope our listeners find utility in as well. And it's understanding the difference between self-esteem and
Mm-hmm.
self-efficacy. And the way Chris framed it, he talked about how with self-esteem is a feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and feelings are fickle. And I like the way he says that, because
Yeah,
it
that's
helps me
great.
understand it. Self-efficacy, on the other hand, and what I kind of followed up with, is it attaches, or seems to attach, to the more intellectualizing, more compartmentalizing capable part of our
Mm-hmm.
brain, and that maybe they can exist at the same time. That self-esteem may be absolutely in the crapper
Mm-hmm.
and operating in full on imposter. But if there's a way to leverage the intellectual side and focus on that self-efficacy, that we can actually understand, I've got the skills to work my way
Mm-hmm.
through this. I don't know what I'm
Right.
doing. This is good judgment. When I talk about self-esteem and self-efficacy, and I talk about compartmentalization, tell me a little bit about some of the things that you've experienced, or maybe some tools that you've used in
Mm-hmm.
that process.
So some tools that I've used, gosh, since my college days. I remember uh, the I was in a sorority that I just thought I didn't belong in. They were all so much more beautiful and, all the things, and they wanted me to be the president, and it made no sense to me. I'm like, what is this? And I chalked it up to the efficacy piece of it. Right? I worked harder, knew how to do it, uh, but somewhere early on, I saw in myself a couple of qualities that I thought, okay, these work in the world. And they were true, authentic qualities within myself. And I think I figured that out in college. So while I had self esteem issues all over the place, which is because they were all swanning around and they're, you know, the pretty girls, and I was one of the smart, effective girls. Uh, I knew there was something in me, and what that was I have a genuine interest in people. I mean, that's why you and I hit it off when we met 25 years ago. I just like you, and I like asking questions about you, and I like learning and really getting to know you. That's something that I was born with somehow, and so you throw me in a van with these Anderson Consulting guys. Even though I definitely had imposter syndrome, I knew that that piece of me was important because when you're working on a big corporate relocation, one of the keys is asking the best questions to get down beneath the layers, right? So even though at the age of 25, too far out over my skis, somehow that voice inside of me knew uh, that it had an advantage. And I think when you have imposter syndrome, it's so easy to behave in a way you think you should and not listen to that inner voice. And so to me, that's a tool. And that's something I have learned over, the 62 years of my life, which is you do belong and listen to that inner voice. The other thing I'll tell you, when I took the job at the chamber, I mean, you will not believe this one iota, but walking into a room of strangers uh, back then was terrifying to me. And I remember when I took the job, I thought about not even taking the job, thinking every day of your life, all day, you are going to be walking into rooms full of strangers, and not just
Mm.
strangers, high profile governors, mayors, commissioners, CEOs. And what I learned over the years is there's a piece of it. And sometimes I would stand outside a ballroom door and kind of breathe and think, okay, bring that girl, right? Because sometimes you don't feel like bringing that girl. But I know very well the pieces of me that resonate that make me successful. And I still do it before I go on stage for a speech or something. I'm like, okay, bring her.
Mm.
And because it's not about the achievements, it's about kind of who I am as a person. But man, it took a long time to learn that
Wow. So
and to trust that, right?
we've talked on the show, we've talked a lot about personifying, anthropomorphizing the imposter.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to put maybe some better guardrails around that imposter by turning,
Mm-hmm.
and Kelso, we've mentioned, he actually talks about it as the imposter. He personifies it.
Mm-hmm.
I think someone even gave theirs a name somewhere along the way, Joe or
Yeah.
something. But what's interesting is you did the opposite. You identified, and maybe by using compartmentalization, you were able to identify the sort of the light and dark version of imposter
Mm-hmm.
versus best you, and you were
Right.
able to identify that best you. I would I would love to I would love one of the psychologists we've had on here recently to ask this
Mm-hmm.
question, but maybe the question is, do you believe that to be a part of a coping mechanism?
Absolutely. Of course it is. I mean, to stand outside of a room full of 500 people and have to talk yourself into bringing that girl, you talk about a coping mechanism, right? Uh, I will also say the reason I was so excited about coming on your show and talking about this is during those early years, there's a lot of fear attached to imposter syndrome, right? And I think in women, the article was so fascinating from 1978, which is, I think, particularly for women in male dominated uh, sectors, you just think, I've got to work harder. I can never be anything but perfect. If they want 100%, I have to do 120%. And it's all based in fear. And I've had a lot of great uh, counselors, coaches, therapists, probably over the last 10 or 15 years, who have helped me understand that there is no place in this life to walk around afraid. And so, any message that I can share, which is for the 20 something women coming up, is relax into yourself. And because I walked around in fear a lot. And I remember one year I was working so hard. I was working like 16 hours a day and I got shingles on my face. And I was working with this, and it's terrible. You can go blind from it. And I was working with this great coach at the time, and she laughed when she heard it. And she said, "Of course you got shingles on your face." She said, "Your body is telling you not doing it. You cannot drive yourself this way for perfection. And I'm just going to F with you and put shingles on your face, which is going to shut you down for a while. So I've gotten to be much wiser over the years with all of those years of great uh, coaches. But uh, this is about your health. I mean,
Mm.
walking around in fear will impact your health, and that's why anything we can do to help put imposter syndrome, put the imposter over in a corner and say, I know who you are, but you don't get to drive, right? It's
Mm.
like put it in the back seat.
So have you observed imposter among other women leaders, rising professionals in your field? And then maybe the second piece, and I think you just covered a little bit of it, but
Mm-hmm.
when you recognize that, what are some other ways that you might support them?
Oh, goodness. I would defy you to find a woman who is successful in the world who has not had imposter syndrome. And
Mm.
if they haven't, then they're probably not somebody you want to hang out with, right? Or they're using a mask of overconfidence.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first got at my current place where I work, I deal with these women leaders all over the country, and sometimes I think it manifests itself as trying to be overly aggressive and man like, you know. And I remember telling our CEO one day, I was like, you need to let me run a little charm school for these women, because that over aggressiveness, like I'm going to be a man because I'm in a man's world. God, what a waste of time. There is a unique asset of being a female, and it's not that, right? So I think that is a coping mechanism. Um, the one thing I would say is find your tribe of other women that are going to support each other. And you know mine very well, Johnny. And the concept that any one of us would think that the other is anything less than beyond perfect is just offensive, right? So I've got a group of, God, dozens, but about 4 or 5 that are just, we support each other, and we we shoot down the concept that we're anything less than amazing and perfect. Uh, and running a company, I manage 40 something all commission sales people, largely men. I've got a great group of women as well. They all have imposter syndrome. It's not a male female thing. When you're in all commission sales, it is brutal out there. So, my role, I often think of it, I'm more of a counselor, honestly, than a CEO. And I am constantly like, you've got this, and I'm behind you, just like Fred Harris was behind me when I was 25 years old. But it is a constant theme that I think about every day in my business is how do I make this team of people feel like they belong and are successful?
So you bring up something that seems to be a recurring theme for those that suffer with imposter syndrome. The folks that we see here on the show, or that I've seen in my life, or the studies seem to point towards, mentoring and
Mm-hmm.
support community. It's the difference between success and failure in so many ways. And you've mentioned a couple times
Mm-hmm.
ways that you were mentored, and you're also mentioning specifically ways you're mentoring others.
Mm-hmm.
And one question I would have for you would be, there's a statistic that we continue to question, and it says that in corporate America, there is somewhere less than 5% of an actual awareness
Mm-hmm.
and addressability of imposter syndrome through corporate America. Um, my question is, do you find that to be true? And B, have you as a leader ever addressed imposter directly as a phenomenon in one of your teams? Or have you been addressed in one of your teams that way?
You know, what I have done is probably not healthy. And again, that's why I love that you have a podcast called The Imposter Syndrome. I mean, I'm not kidding you, because my tendency has always been, don't ever talk about it, right?
Mm,
Don't ever talk about it. Certainly when you're in the arena, uh, doing whatever it is that you do, be it your day job. And I think that, because I don't particularly like women who lead with, when they're in a room, wow, I'm so honored to be here. I just, I think that if you're playing in powerful arenas, you want to be seen as a peer that can go toe to toe. Now, that's great. It has served me well, but it didn't help quell the fear, right? I think when you name something and you talk about it, uh, it helps quell the fear and make it go away, and
mm,
helps you, like, say, I know who you are, right? So I think the way I've coped with it in my life would not be how I would advise. I would just say, acknowledge it in the right places,
mm.
because there is a place in the world which is, there is a just do it mentality, where you may feel like you're faking it, but you're doing your job, right? You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. But I do think it's healthy to name it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it sounds like, and it sounds like you found to some degree what I've found, and that's
Hmm.
there is a danger of victimhood. There is a danger of
Hmm.
over focusing on the thing itself. Now we have an entire pod show about imposter syndrome, so it's
Right.
kind of, everything we talk about ties back into it. But it's a small part of, an overall approach that I would agree that there is a time and a place. But I would
Hmm.
also say that what I've found, and Janet, I think I heard some of this in there, is that as you can address it, when you do address it, it gives you a certain agency over it.
Hmm.
And I think that's one thing that's really critical, important in the conversations. But they have to be safe places. They have to be among people where it resonates, and especially as leaders, if you're trying to drive an initiative or get the thing approved or accomplished or close the deal or whatever it might be that you're
Hmm.
working on, sometimes we have to play in whatever realm we're in, and oftentimes that realm, feelings and individuality and people, not
Hmm.
exactly the most welcome. So I guess one question there would be, um, it seems tough to navigate. What is an indicator? What is a signal where you see now is the time to talk about
Hmm.
this issue that I see in someone, whether it be female or not? But
Hmm.
what does that signal look like for you as a leader? And then how do you capitalize on that opportunity to show the warmth and
Hmm.
the wealth of knowledge that you have when it comes to leading people, whether you're talking specifically about imposter or not?
Sure. So I see it in my own company sometimes, right? And when I'm mentoring kind of up and coming, 20 somethings, presenting is a big part of what we do in the commercial real estate business, right? You're pitching clients, you're making presentations about them making multi-million dollar decisions. So where it shows up is that I can sense and see the insecurity or the lack of confidence, if one of my team members is working on a presentation and doesn't feel like they are worthy, and they don't own the space, right? And it. You've seen a gazillion people speak. You know when somebody's relaxed and owns the space, and others who are really anxious. So I have found that, uh, getting someone to actually coach them, and I brought in coaches multiple times, because I'm very expressive with my hands. You can just see this. I knock microphones and water glasses all the time, but you can see it in body language. You can see it in tones. You can see it when people look up. So I have found, and it even it's less about the coaching, but more about the investment, that I believe in you enough to bring in somebody to work with you, and you can unlearn those behaviors, right? So, if you're an if you're somebody who, the whole Sheryl Sandberg story about the ums and radical candor, you can make people more aware of how they're manifesting any fear or anxiety. So,
Mm, that's I'm an ummer.
mm-hmm,
And I read an article one time, and it said, I think it was Harvard Business Review, and it said
mm-hmm,
people that use uh, there was a higher intelligence level that this study pointed to, and so I just grabbed onto that and used it as justification. I try to do a better job because it can be distracting, but
uh-huh,
in some ways I've actually found comfort of, if ums are part of who you are, then be part of who
right,
you are. So
yeah, that's right.
specific to, we kind of wandered into public speaking, or at least
Mm-hmm,
presentation. I've watched you. I remember it was one time, it was at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, and you were talking about traffic. Did not expect it to be a very engaged traffic. I was there to
uh-huh,
see you, but the topic material was not exactly something I was interested in,
mm-hmm,
and I became very interested in it.
uh-huh,
It was very um, it was very engaging. But I
mm-hmm,
think a part of the reason that it was engaging, and I'm going to pay you a compliment. I've seen, I remember in the room when I had this thought, and this has been
mm-hmm.
maybe 10
God,
years
I
ago.
can't believe this.
Yeah. I watched John Sigenthaler Sr.
Mm-hmm.
Speak one time. And from just an experience, the way that I experienced it, I never really had experienced up to that point in time someone filling up the room with their
Mm-hmm.
presence. And his grace,
Mm-hmm.
his
He was amazing.
everything about him, just the sound of his voice, the timbre of his voice, the everything that was conveyed in the words that he used and the way that he spoke, it was able to fill up a room. And I watched you do
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
day. And so one question that I'll segue off of that, there's an interesting thing that we're finding with conversations that we have with people that
Mm-hmm.
experience imposter syndrome, and paradoxically love being on stage. Do you
Mm-hmm.
love being on stage?
I love being on stage. I absolutely love it. I love it. Because I love being engaged and drawn in to a great speaker like John Sigenthaler, Lord Senior or Junior. Uh, and I learned again, my Fred Harris back in my 20s taught me people really enjoy a sense of humor. And so often, God, these people do not have a sense of humor. Uh, and people like to hear stories. So I got raised in storytelling very early in my career at the chamber in my 20s. And so and plus, look, we've all got great things. I mean, your IQ is probably 3 times mine. My EQ is I have a really strong EQ because I really love to connect with people. So somewhere I figured that out and just learned to nurture it. And so any presentation, I want to draw people in quickly, and usually it's by something that's got a sense of humor, because people can then relax and think, "Oh God, it's not going to be that boring. I can sit here for half an hour." But also this the storytelling aspect, and I love to see people who own a room, and so the fact that you would say I own a room is um, just fills me with gratitude. So thank you for that.
Well, you mentioned storytelling. Um, when it comes to imposter, I know my answer for this,
Hmm.
but for your answer, tell me what you think about storytelling and how it relates to imposter.
Oh goodness.
And maybe this is the question,
Uh
is
huh.
that what it is imposter syndrome in some ways simply a story we tell ourselves?
Okay, now I can get on board with that question right there because, of course, it is. I was qualified and I did belong in that van on the HCA deal. So the only person who questioned it was myself, right? And honestly, Johnny, when I look at, I mean, it blows my mind when I pick up a business journal and they put me on the cover. I will never understand how that could possibly be interesting to anybody. But what instead of questioning it now, and this is wisdom and a lot of work over the years, instead of questioning it now, I just am filled with gratitude. And what I've found is if you can replace fear with gratitude at any point where you are, uh, then it's like you say, it's lightness and darkness. And I have sat in rooms where I just can't believe I'm there, right? I remember going to when Mayor Purcell was mayor. He's like, "Let's go to China. Let's take 100 business leaders to China." Right? So my team, Blue at Melton, and we all worked and took 100 business leaders to China. And you're sitting in a room with governors, mayors, diplomats. You're on the Great Wall. I mean, and you're like, "In what world do I get to live this life?" And so somewhere it turned into I'm not just the gratitude kind of has edged out the fear over time. And I would say to any young person, as quickly as you can accelerate replacing the fear with gratitude or naming that thing so that you can manage it better, because fear steals joy. And at this point in my life, we get one life, and I am about joy as much as I can possibly be. And so if I can stamp out the darkness of the fear and bring gratitude and joy instead, that's a happier way to live.
Wow. Our podcast manager is going to love this because there were so many clips in there that are
Hmm.
shorts waiting to happen. There was so much knowledge dropping that was happening there.
I talk in bumper stickers occasionally.
Well, it's accessible. It's accessible.
Uh-huh.
And uh, we've I use something that's alliterative in a process I use where I like alliteration, helps me remember
Hmm.
certain things. So I've got the 4 R's that I use to help me
Hmm.
navigate some things. In one of our shows, one of the folks said, "Be careful of what was it? Be careful of advice that rhymes." And I think we were talking about the fake it till you make it concept. And
Uh-huh.
he said, typically bad advice, if it rhymes, it'll stick.
Oh, that's
So
hilarious.
be careful. None of that rhymed, but what it was is it was, well, it was inspiring. It was useful. I could see being able to grab onto that. But one of the amazing things is it's simple and elegant at the same time. Some of the
Hmm.
things that you said are just, they're so simple, and this is such a complicated thing that we deal with, the
Hmm.
especially at the pathological levels of self-doubt.
Right.
And so having those tools in your toolbox are
Hmm.
so critical and so important.
Hmm.
And you mentioned the word gratitude.
Yeah.
Um, as a coping mechanism, I would think that I know for me personally, whenever I'm in a scenario, I'm not sure that I've ever put that name to it, but
Hmm.
gratitude, that is such a game changer in flipping that over. It sounds like that's one of your major coping mechanisms.
It is, but you know what? I wouldn't call it a coping mechanism. And I think I told you this when we were having lunch recently. 3 years ago, I fainted dead away in my living room and had a massive pulmonary embolism that I am so lucky I came out alive from. Not a lot of people live from
Mm.
what I had. And I was in the ICU, I was out of work for 6 weeks and all that. And it truly did change my life in a way because I was so surrounded by love and support from my vast network and tribe of people that it became that gratitude became a part of who I am and not a mechanism, right? So, uh,
Mm.
because I had a realization when you have something like that happen, running this company is really important to me. All of my community work's really important, but boy, that flipped the lens to say what really matters is your relationships, how you do good in the world, how you connect with people. And I learned deep at my cellular level that if you bring that into your work and everything that you do, then there's no place for fear or imposter syndrome. And I would say every now and again, I will have that guy show up, the imposter guy, but I've had a lot of experience with it and I've worked on it a lot over the years. And uh, I truly believe that you can quiet that voice if you focus on those, just being awash in the really things that are light and good and gratitude and just having fun and joy, right? I don't think the imposter can live when you've got 30 women doing goat yoga, right? It's just joy pushes it out every time.
Well, I heard you talking about something, and it sounds like it's a recipe. And maybe the brush with death part of the recipe. Maybe there's better
Not everybody gets the
alternatives.
opportunity for that, you
Not
know?
everybody. Not everybody wants that opportunity. But what I heard was through that process, it sounds as though it got you closer to something that is very, I think, very difficult for many people, especially people with imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
and it's authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my experience personally, actually, one time I said to someone, I've really been working on authenticity lately,
Mm-hmm.
and they said you can't work on authenticity. That's the
Mm-hmm.
nature of authenticity.
Oh,
It
that's brilliant.
Yeah, it comes from you, it emanates from you,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't work on it. It can't be happening as a mechanism. And I think I don't know if you used the word mechanism, but it
Uh-huh.
sounded like there were things that you were saying along the way and I think that even the question that I asked, I was sort of asking in such a way that, can you, this coping mechanism,
Mm-hmm.
it you found your way to a more natural occurrence versus it
Mm-hmm.
being a mechanism that you're using, something that you're employing. It sounds like it's just something that you're being, that you just are.
I think that is where we all should strive to be in our lives, which is just comfortable with ourselves. And I've always said, if you look at a picture of Audrey Hepburn or and Lucille Ball, every girl wants to be Audrey Hepburn, right? I mean, I am not. I am Lucille Ball, and that's great. That's great. So the fact that I know exactly who I am, uh, and I honestly think that I don't try to be the other things. I don't try to get into the rooms with the things I'm not. I just, and part of it's just age. I mean, I'm bordering on elderly at this point. I'm a wise elder now, Johnny. But I would say I've known you an awful long time, and I've always thought I know who you are, right?
Mhm.
And it's who we're seeing right here. So again, it's uh, um, quieting the voice because you've always been this relaxed, charming, engaging person. So a lot of it is quieting the voices. You know what I want? You'll get a big kick out of this. I probably have 50 glass trophies that I'm going to be bringing home when I'm transitioning from my job at Colliers. And I have this idea. I want to take them and take a sledgehammer to them and smash them all up. And then I want to make a huge piece of art out of them that's a big, giant crystal heart. It's going to be one of my retirement projects. But I
Oh,
look at them and I don't need them anymore. That it's
yeah.
nice, but they're just taking up space. And I want to transform them into something that is more the essence of who I am. And
Oh,
Won't that be fun? Come over where you can pick up a sledgehammer and bust up a
I'll
bunch of trophies.
I'll bring my hammer. And what a seems psychologically charged also that
Hmm.
there's the some of the things that we talk about when it comes to accomplishment on the show,
Hmm.
that the things that you accomplish, they become things that you can own, but then those things that
Hmm.
you own can then own you. They become
Hmm.
an unhealthy mechanism versus a force field, and it's all in how you handle it. And
Right.
what an incredible um, lesson for the world that take those things, and you're not dishonoring them.
No, not at
That
all. Not
you're
at all.
appreciating them. You're
Hmm.
really, there's the there's the epiphenomenon is the word I think it is,
Hmm.
where out of the many things you're
Uh-huh.
transcending those things into something completely else, and it's really about just the joy you're bringing to others
Hmm.
through the things that you do. And that's something you've always done for me. Is you
Hmm.
mentioned all those things that you mentioned about me were not always what I was experiencing, by the way.
Hmm.
But I can also say a lot of it depends upon the person sitting across from me.
That's
There
right.
are
That's right.
there are people that can trigger the very negative parts of me to come out. And
Uh-huh.
typically what I've found is with imposter syndrome, when I'm at my most arrogant in
Hmm.
my past, or now, when I am at my most arrogant, it is generally because something in the imposter is getting triggered and I'm trying to overcome it.
Hmm.
Um, Initially, I'm sure there was part of that because who you are back then, now,
Hmm.
very imposter triggering just from a surface level. But I think instantly I saw something in you that you got to see something in me, but that maybe not everybody
Hmm.
was seeing back then. And I think there was that invitation that we talked about. There
Hmm.
was that welcomeness that I just saw in you. And I had a question about that because one thing that I've seen you do in the past is you have a way of um, when you talk to people, you genuinely are interested in them.
I am.
Um, and I'm not going to use the word coping mechanism because it's not the right thing, but do you feel like there is utility in working through your own imposter by really trying to make it about the other person or trying to be
Hmm.
just warm to the other person? Is it a way to get out of your own head?
It is. And it also is, look, it's more fun. You can tell fun and joy are very important core values to me. It is, there's nothing more fun than sitting down with Johnny Anderson at lunch and 5 minutes into the conversation, we drop down. I just went to this class at this place called the Modern Elder Academy in Mexico. That's a whole nother thing. And they talk about the three levels of communication there. The first vault is what we do when you just chit chat with somebody and you're like, hey, tell me, what are you doing this weekend? The second vault is tell me about your stories. Tell me about, the HCA thing. The third vault is what are you feeling? Who are you as a human? What are you wrestling with? And so when I'm with somebody like you, I'm not interested in the first vault. We drop down in the second vault pretty quickly, and it doesn't take long to get into the third vault. And I love that metaphor, that model that I learned there, because
Mm.
to me, living in the second and the third vault is what makes me happy. And so I find people, and I think there's just soul connections with people that you meet in the world that it doesn't have to stay on the surface. And that's just something you and I figured out 20 something years ago. And I think as much as we can be authentic and really talk about what's true and not just the surface stuff, and that's why I ask questions and I'm genuinely interested, because I like dropping down uh, quickly, because that's where the good stuff in life is to me.
I, I'm not going to be able to quote it verbatim, but I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt had a
Mm-hmm.
quote, and it was something along seems to marry with the concept you were talking about. It basically said something
Mm-hmm.
along the lines of There's certain type of people that talks about things.
Mm-hmm.
There's other types of people that talk about people, but the
Mm-hmm.
great people talk about ideas and
Right.
concepts, and
Yeah.
we find our way into those deep soul conversations about meaning and purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, this is just going to be a question for the listeners and for maybe us to ponder on for future episodes. But I wonder if the meaning and purpose component that's so important to us, is there something, is that an offshoot of imposter? Is it a symptom of imposter? Is it something that is it a driving behavior? Being so focused on meaning and purpose, uh,
Mm-hmm.
that's big stuff. So I can see where that could create
Mm-hmm.
imposterism. Or is it a side effect of having imposter, that we need that meaning and purpose to overcome some feeling we have internal? If you have an answer, I'll take it. But if nothing else, I want to get that question out into the world. It seems
It's a
important.
it's a good one. We'll leave that to your listeners.
We'll leave that to the listeners. And we'll find that quote and throw it in the
Yeah.
notes. So we've talked a little bit about, talked a good about reflections. We've talked about some legacy, and what a great way to celebrate legacy by dragging all of your big hunks of glass, smashing them into bits, and making a gratitude mosaic.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
I just love that. But when it comes to entering into that legacy phase, if you were to
Mm-hmm.
look back, is there anything you wish you had known earlier in your career about imposterism, self-doubt, and self-worth? Is there something you would have liked to have known earlier that you've learned along the way?
I was probably 40 years old until I the the joy gratitude overcame the imposter. The imposter was a pretty dominant figure in my life, if you want to say that. I would just say to anybody, particularly young women, get that thing, name it, understand it, analyze it, figure out what your true inner voice says your gifts are, and manage it much better than I did, because there were a lot of years, like I said, where I was working too much. I didn't have balance. I was anxious about it all the time. And I look back on it, and again, I've become a much more spiritual person. And I just think we get this one lifetime. And as early as we can start managing those uh, syndromes, to evolve to a place where it's about helping others, joy, and your relationships in your life. That's I truncated a lot of that in my life, and I'm so blessed to be at a different place now. Um, Now, the old monster rears back up every now and then. Of course it does. I mean, you throw me into a big thing over at Bellmead Country Club, and imposter syndrome is going to come waltzing in from this, public school girl from Nashville. But I know what it is now, and I can name it. And I worked with this great coach, Deb Palmer George, once, and she said, when something comes at you, catch it, act like you're going to catch it in the air like a ball before it hits your emotions, and say, I know what this is. So I have evolved to a point where if I see that imposter coming at me, I can catch it in the air on good days and say, I know what you are. You don't belong here. Go sit in the corner. Uh, but I don't know that you ever completely get over it. I really don't. And
Right.
again, if you do, you're probably going to be an arrogant, overconfident person. And I don't ever want to be seen as an arrogant, overconfident person.
I that is a core theme of some of the work that I'm doing. It centers around, you will never get over this.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the stances is, so much of the so much of the curative components that are out there, and the imposters becoming a more popular topic, and I think there are some incredible voices. We have several of them on the show recently. We're looking for more. We want to amplify those voices, but then there's also some voices where I think there is too large of a focus on that this is something that you can make go away forever, or that you can kill or conquer, or I understand the idea behind these words, but I think there's a danger in looking at it, because it's been my experience that especially for those of us with it, that's pretty extreme. It happens, and it's something that's woven into our fundamental selves. And that's going to bring me to my next question. I didn't bring this one up in the beginning intentionally, because these are the types of questions that we could spend the entire episode talking about. And it's related to some of the more darker sides of some of the things that helps build our psyche. I'll ask you a yes or no question, and then I'll follow it up with an open invitation to share more. And so my first question is, in your fundamental years and as a child growing up, did you experience trauma?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
And is there anything that, and this is where the vulnerability piece, we all have to, we have to go out into the world, and we don't want anything weaponized against us, and sharing can sometimes be dangerous, but what can you share with us that might help a listener or me in your story?
I can share with you that I grew up in a home that had some level of violence and some level of mental illness in the family. And again, after years of working on all this, I figured out that overachieving self came out early because it made me feel safe to overachieve. And it made me feel like I can control things more. Because when you're in an environment like that where you can't control the walls getting kicked in, and it was a lame effort to control my life and the world. What I've learned is you can't control so much of our lives, but you can control your own person, your own soul, right? And it took me a long time to learn that. So goes back to the question of if you could change anything. I wish I had had care around me in my early years that taught me you don't have to be perfect to survive. And it is just ground into your foundational being when you come from a trauma household. And I don't think there's that many perfect, cleaver, leave it to beaver families in the planet. I think most families in today's world have some level of trauma. And I think all of this is often grounded in that. I know it is for me.
Yeah. Thank you thank you just for another hunk of beauty.
A
right
hunk of
there
beauty.
in the way
I love
that it's
that.
just a hunk of beauty that you laid out there. But also just thank you for being vulnerable there for a moment and sharing some of that darker side of ourselves. We talked a lot about joy, and we talked a lot about happiness, and we talked a lot about a lot of great things, but it's important that we talk about some of the things that are causes, and how somebody one time told me hurt people hurt people. And I found that to be so instructive, that
Oh yeah.
some of that generational hand down. Personally, my parents were both, I'll say they were both beneficiaries of very negative things, and very broken people, and they experienced a ton of trauma. I talk a little bit about mine. I didn't. I had a great childhood, but there were some things that I think their trauma and the way that it impacted them, the way that they raised me, there were some gaps, and those could be, and I kind of wrestle a little bit with those. Could be the ways that my imposterism was developed early and fundamentally, not because of trauma, but because of, and I use the term, the presence of an absence. There was something missing in both of my parents.
Interesting.
And so it wasn't an exact trauma, but it's a lot easier when I talk to people, it's easier to understand those pieces. But I think what you said is really important in that we tend to have the suck it up buttercup approach from a societal level, and there is a danger in victimhood and staying in it for a long time. But I think it's a fundamental right of every single human being to be able to stand up and say, I was hurt, I was damaged, I was wronged in some way. It was secondary. They didn't mean to, but it happened anyway. And it's all okay. But there is such a danger in ignoring something that might be a critical component of your fundamental psychological makeup, the who you are as a being. We have to wrestle with it sometimes. There's biblical lessons. My favorite, one of my favorite biblical lessons is the word Israel comes from. Do you know the word Israel? Do you know what the word Israel, where it comes from?
I do not.
Israel literally means to wrestle with. It means to contend with, but it means to wrestle with God.
Oh,
And
wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, the story of Jacob. He's walking down the street. He wrestles, and depending upon which interpretation of scripture, he's wrestling either with an angel or he's wrestling with God. And it's really an analogy around religion, but I find it useful pretty much in every way of life. That the concept was he wrestled with it, and that's what you're supposed to do. And the angel or God, depending upon the interpretation, reached and touched him on the hip and said, "You'll henceforth walk with a limp."
Oh, wow.
And the idea is these are things we will have to wrestle with in life, whether it be religion, whether it be these types of things. And when you grab onto them, they're difficult and they're tough, and you're probably not going to overcome them, and you're going to walk away with a limp. But you got to grab onto him. And Jacob was then given the name Israel.
Oh, and that. You just made my day telling me that story.
So let me ask. Here's my final question. We're close to the time, and I wish we could go for 5-6 more hours, but we have to wrap this up. So my final question to you is: you have been open, you have been honest, you have been vulnerable, and how do you hope that openness, that honesty in your leadership styles and about these topics will impact the next generation of not just women, but largely, but just Nashville's business leaders? What example is Janet Miller trying to set there, and what's your hope? What's your perfect outcome of that scenario?
So my hope, when I look back over my life, or when I'm on my deathbed, or you're sitting at my funeral in 35 years, is that the legacy is she helped a lot of people. She did a lot of good in the world, right? Uh, that's what matters to me. It's never been about the money or the title or any of that. What I would say for the legacy with others is it was a hard road getting to this level of peace, and it's, I mean, I'm a work in progress. It's still going on, but I think any acceleration that young women can do, be it through really deep conversation with their friends about these things, or coaches, or therapists, or spiritual advisors, do it early, because this life is so precious. And letting anything that has fear or anxiety as its face dominate your life is just wasted days.
Mm.
And that you do belong. We all belong. There's nobody walking on this planet that doesn't belong here. And to me, that's as much as we can accelerate that in the world, because your word hurt people. There is a lot of that going on in the world right now. And boy, wouldn't it be great to be able to cure that in the world? It'd be a much different place than it is today.
Well, it sounds like helping others is one of the biggest in the recipe of becoming a better person. Helping
Mm-hmm.
others is probably one of the bigger ones. And Janet,
Mm-hmm.
you've helped me in so many ways. I
Oh.
attribute, I say to Todd Featherling, and I said this the other day, and he didn't understand why, but I said, more than any person, I think he impacted my life and my development. And he'll always have one up on you because
Oh, he's one of mine. He's one of
he
my
introduced me
guys
to you,
too.
so he'll always have a leg up on you because he introduced me to you. But I will say, there in my career and just in life in
Mm-hmm.
general, I have our interactions, I have grown from them as an individual.
Oh.
When I look at the list of people who've impacted my life, as mentor, as leader, as good example, in the top 5 list, you're somewhere
Oh.
probably 2, 3,
You're
and
just trying to make me cry, aren't you?
well, it's the
Not gonna do
truth.
it. Not doing it.
So the truth will do that. But I
Oh.
want to say thank you for joining the show, Janet Miller, impeccable leader, world impactor, love pusher, human blood pressure medication,
A
and
love
just
pusher. I love that. I'm
a
gonna
love
adopt
pusher,
that.
and someone who uses the term joy in an unironic, unabashed, unwilling to compromise way.
Mm-hmm.
Joy, I think your term was I'm all about joy or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And
Why not?
that is a lesson for those of us that have trouble sometimes with joy.
Yeah.
Just that statement alone could potentially give people that will not give themselves permission to experience
Mm-hmm.
it, the permission to experience it.
Well,
So,
being on your show has brought me joy today. So
well,
you did good.
that makes me very happy, and I appreciate you coming on. I look forward to see what's next. The phase that you're in right now is so amazing to watch.
Yeah.
Um, you are grace. You are
Oh.
pleasant. You are warm. You are Janet Miller human hug.
Oh,
Um,
big hug to Johnny Anderson.
thank
Thank
you
you
so
for
much for joining,
absolutely. It was really fun.
and we will talk to you soon. Hope to see you around this great, great town of ours.
Yes, sir.